There's another spirit. Her name is Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Her question is, I hear of God's love helping me to progress to better places in this world.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get this love? Because I really want to progress. I don't like where I am.
Where are you, Mary?
It feels like I'm in a black hole.
Yep. Are there other people with you or not?
Yes, lots.
Lots of people. And how do they all feel? Similar to you?
Very sad.
Yep. And you have a lot of grief.
Yes.
And what's the grief mostly about?
My life.
And what about your life?
Do you want to tell me?
You're quite ashamed of your life.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, no one here is going to judge your life, so you can speak freely about it, but you don't have to.
I was a prostitute.
Right. Yeah. And when you passed, what happened when you passed?
I went to this horrible place.
Yeah.
And I can't get away from here. And you talk of God's love.
Yeah.
And I've never felt any love.
Yeah.
And I want to progress. If I can leave here, I want to.
Yep. Well, the first thing we're going to do is ask if that's all right. I know you feel very ashamed, but what if I ask some spirits who have also been prostitutes in the past, who now connect to God? What if I ask them to come and just be with you while I talk to you? Is that all right with you?
Yes.
Okay, so can you see some of them now with you?
Yes. They are the bright ones.
Yeah. Now understand what I'm saying is these ones have been prostitutes too.
They do not look like me.
No. So obviously you can get out of where you are if these ones have got out of where they were. What they're going to do for a moment is just project to you where they were when they first arrived in the spirit world. So can you see the pictures of where they arrived in the spirit world when they first arrived?
Yes.
So what do you notice?
They were worse than me.
Yeah, that's right. So if they were in a more terrible condition than you are right now, then obviously you can get out of where you are right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk about how to do that. Here's God. So let's say, draw a picture of God. So you can see this picture, can you?
Yes.
If Natalie looks at it, you'll be able to see it. Fine. All right. So here's God. Here's your soul. You are actually half of a soul. So I'm going to draw the soul like this so you can see there's another half of you as well. How long ago did you pass?
500 years.
Right. Okay. So, and where did you live then? Around about?
Portugal, Spain.
Right. So south in Europe.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And how did you die actually? Because I feel you need to address that a little bit emotionally.
I was murdered.
Right. Yep. Okay. And do you notice that many of the ones who are with you are sort of in the same, they've had similar things happen to them? Many of them...
There are many women here in pain.
Yeah. And although many of them haven't been prostitutes, they've acted like prostitutes while they were on earth.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a whole group of them with you. Yeah. And so what I'm going to say really does apply to you as a group as well as to you individually. Here's what I'd call your soul. Now, your soul is connected to your bodies. So when you were on earth, you actually had... I'll draw you as a skirt. There you go. While you were on earth, you had two bodies. One was your physical body and one was your spirit body, right? You remember that when you were on earth? I know it's a while ago.
Yes.
Yep. So when your physical body died, when you were murdered, you instantly knew that something had happened and changed for you. And now can you see you've got your own spirit body still there? But you can see that it's quite distorted. Like it's ugly. It's ugly. Uglier than what you looked when you were on earth.
What I remember, yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, the reason why that's the case is because connected to your spirit body is something you can't see. And that thing that you can't see is called your soul. Right? And what happens is, as you work your way through different things on earth, different things that you choose to do and different things that happen to you and all those kind of things, all these emotions enter you. So a heap of emotions and beliefs that enter you emotionally. So there's emotions and beliefs that entered you, right? And they become a part of your soul. And then your spirit body reflects the condition of your soul. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
To you? So, and remember, you're half of a soul. So you've got a soul mate somewhere else in the spirit world as well. All right? Now,
Are they damaged like me?
no, they may not be. The feeling I have is that your soulmate is not. And in fact, your soulmate's been around you for quite some time and you haven't even recognised them because of their condition. Would you like to see him?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he's. Can you see him now?
Yes.
Yeah. And what's he like?
He's so beautiful.
He's really beautiful, isn't he? Yeah. And the key is to not get into shame here about yourself. The key is to understand that you remember right back at the beginning I showed the ones who were bright and really beautiful, they were just in the worse condition than you when they first passed, right? You remember that?
Yes.
So you've got to remember that you can be just as beautiful as those ones too. Does that make sense? In this process, you've got to remember that and stay and remind yourself of that all the way through this process that I'm going to describe to you. All right? So what we want to do is actually help you understand that, right, lots of things happened to you and there were choices you made when you're on the earth, and that caused the soul to get darker and darker in its condition. And that influences your spirit body. So your spirit body gets darker and darker in its condition. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, what happens when you pass is you become aware of how dark your spirit body's condition is, and then for you went into a lot of shame, right? And you've been feeling lots of shame, and it's been quite hard for you, hasn't it, over this time?
Yes.
But what I'd like to do now is just show you how you can start letting go of all of this darkness that's there, and which is to do with feeling emotions. Do you remember emotions from Earth? And you're having some now, obviously. You're having the emotion of grief and shame now, so that's an emotion.
Yes.
Yep, you remember that? So
I remember anger and hate very well.
Yes. So the problem is that anger and hate are what are called, what we would call capping or blocking or self-deception type emotions. And what I mean by that is that anger and hate prevent you from releasing your soul's condition. And what we need to do is get under the anger and hate and into the real emotions that guide the anger and hate, which is fear and grief. Does that make sense to you? So what you have been doing a lot is working through emotions of anger and hate, right? But what the real emotions that heal you and were going to make your spirit body brighter are going to be fear and grieving type emotions. Does that make sense? So you'll need to allow yourself to experience them. But there's a fast way you can do this. What you do is inside of yourself, you can have a longing, which is like, let's call it a passionate desire. Do you know what I mean by that?
Can you explain it a bit better?
Did you ever have a friendship or somebody you loved on earth that you really, really wanted to be with?
Yes.
Yeah? Do you remember how you had a really strong, passionate desire for them?
I wanted to be like them.
Yeah. And what happened in the process? They hurt you, did they?
No, I disappointed them and hurt them.
Right.
And I didn't be around them for the shame that I caused them.
Yeah, okay. So if you can reconnect, instead of connecting to the shame, if you can connect to this passionate desire, but direct that kind of desire that you had towards God. So you say to yourself, if there's a God out there, that what I would like is to start to receive your love, but instead of just saying the words, you actually have a really strong feeling inside of you that matches those words. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now what will happen as soon as you start having a strong feeling that matches those words, there'll be a connection that happens between you and God, and you'll actually feel this connection at the beginning, but you won't see it because it will be too bright for you to see. But you'll feel it. And when you feel this connection, some of God's love will flow into you, and you'll feel really overwhelmed, and you'll probably want to have a big cry about it, right? But then what will happen is that some of your fears and some of your grief will come up, just like it's been coming up in our conversation. And you'll need to let yourself feel that while you're receiving God's love. Now, these spirits that are with you, these two spirits who are with you who were prostitutes when they were on the earth and who passed over in a darker condition than you, they can show you how to work through all of this stuff. But it's going to mean you stopping getting into this area all the time and starting to feel more of these emotions. Does that make sense? More of the emotions of fear and grief rather than the emotions of anger and hate.
Can they help all of us here?
They can help all of you, yes. There's whole groups of people waiting to help all of you. So, yes, you certainly can be all assisted. All right? But what you will need to do yourself is this. You will need to allow your emotions to flow instead of trying to stop them with your anger and your hate. Does that make sense? So
That is hard.
That is hard because every time you start having an emotion and start crying, a lot of times you want to get into the hate, don't you, again, and want to get into the anger again.
I remember who caused the emotion.
Yeah. And what we need to do is get back into the grief of that emotion. Does that make sense? Now, these spirits that are with you, they'll help you do that, and they'll also help you understand this longing that you can have for God. And this longing you have for God can actually make this happen very rapidly, but it's going to mean you being completely open to feeling your emotions. And that's going to be the hard part for you, because you've spent a lot of your life in these emotions and not really feeling these emotions very much.
Do you promise this is true?
Well, how about you ask that question of the spirits that are with you?
They say yes.
Okay. So they know what happened to them, don't they? They've actually been through what you're going to go through.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels so impossible.
Yeah. And do you notice that they felt it might have been impossible before they began to?
Yes, we look so different.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. But it is possible, you see, and it's very possible to change very rapidly as well.
I want to change.
Yeah. So, and you're ready to change, by the way, so this is really good. So my suggestion is allow them to show you about this connection with God and having a passionate desire for God and long for God's love to enter you, but to remember that there will be times when you'll be tempted to be angry again and tempted to be resentful and feel hatred again. And whenever those times are there, the spirits who are with you will probably want to leave you for a bit until you get back into these emotions, the more fear and grieving type emotions. Because these emotions they can help you with. This one they can't help you very much with. Does that make sense? You need to feel them, but they are there because you don't want to feel these. Does that make sense? And whenever you choose to not feel your grief and not feel your fear, then you'll be very tempted to get angry again.
I understand.
Yeah. And if you can allow yourself to step back down into those emotions, what's going to happen is God's love will start flowing through you on a regular basis, and you'll feel very brighter very quickly. And where you're currently living, which is not very nice, is it? It's a terrible place that you're living. It'll change very rapidly as well.
Thank you.
Just for a moment, just to show you, can the other spirits show you where they live? They'll show you a picture of where they live? Yeah, that's the kind of place you'd like to live, isn't it? Yeah. So if they could get from a place that's in worse condition than you to that place, then that proves, doesn't it, that you can do the same. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll let you talk with them. They need to give you a hug too, because they've got a lot of crying to do, haven't they? Yeah. So that was Mary. Does anyone have a question about Mary? Let's go on to the next.